Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra book. It is witty, clever, filled with a lot of symbolism and things you can nerd out on. So that is something I enjoy and I hope that you enjoy as well. Let's begin. We were on the section titled On the Rabble. So, rabble rousers, the plebs, you name it. Nietzsche's probably gonna go off, so let's hear what he has to say. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Life is a well of joy, but where the rabble drinks too. As wells are poisoned, I'm fond of all that is clean, but I have no wish to see the grinning snout and the thirst of the unclean. Covered it on. Life is a well of joy, the rabble, where the rabble drinks too. Poisoned wells. Oh, jeez, saucy. Likes things that are clean. Grinning snouts. And then the thirst of the unclean. So this snout's like pig snout, just like rah, 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 like sticking out the tongue, just like bleh. And the thirst of the unclean. You ever seen like a really muddy dog just gulp up at their water bowl? It's like slobbering, dripping from their mouth. They cast their eye into the well. Now their revolting smile shines up out of the well. They have poisoned the holy water with their lustfulness. And when they call their dirty dreams pleasure, they poison the language too. Ooh, that's interesting. So, intimate dream. Shouldn't call those dreams something of pleasure. Interesting. It's changing of the language, misapplying it, he argues. The flame is vexed when their moist hearts come near the fire. The contrast here, something moist can't catch on fire so easy. A flaming heart versus a moist heart. Think about that. The spirit itself seethes and smokes where the rabble steps near the fire. In their hands all the fruit grows sweetish and overmellow. Their glance makes the fruit tree a prey of the wind and wither its crown. And some who turned away from life only turned away from the rabble. They did not want to share well and flame and fruit with the rabble. I mean, community wells can be quite filthy, but gathering around the water container in the workplace, stuff like that, it's where you hear the most gossip. So think about that. So the rabble babbling on, and some who went into the wilderness and suffered thirst with the beasts of prey merely did not want to sit around the cistern with filthy camel drivers. Ooh, ouchie. And some who come along like annihilators and like a hailstorm to all orchards merely want to put a foot into the gaping jaw of the rabble to plug up its throat. The bite on which I gag the most is not the knowledge that life itself requires hostility, okay? Life itself requires hostility. I think that's true. You can have peace, but hostility comes based upon, or hopefully, someone's bad behavior. It's a hostile environment. You need to watch the way in which you walk, how you carry yourself, what you do. And death and torture crosses. But once I asked, and I was almost choked by my question. What? Does life require even the rabble? Ooh. I would say yes as a Muslim because You're doing dawah to the rabble. We all once were probably rabble ourselves, and someone took the time to help guide us by Allah's permission. Are poisoned wells required? Ooh, ouch. And stinking fires, and soiled dreams, and maggots in the bread of life? Maggots in the bread of life. Strong imagery there. Not my hatred, but my nausea gnawed hungrily at my life. Alas, I often grew weary of the spirit when I found that even the rabble had a spirit, and I turned my back on those who rule when I saw what they now call ruling, higgling and haggling for power. That's interesting. What they call ruling is higgling and haggling for power. There's this, and they're vying with each other, and it says here, vying with the rabble. You can look at that in several ways. Democracy, for one. You're talking to the masses, trying to get them to vote for you, trying to make them see. And then if you have a sort of dictator system, you may have more leeway, but within the party platforms, right, the Communist Party platform, you have different kinds of rabble who are like vying for your attention and your position, right? So rabble of like class and of mind. I have lived with closed ears among people with foreign tongues. Would that the tongue of their higgling and their haggling for power might remain foreign to me. And holding my nose, I walked disgruntled through all of yesterday and today. Verily, all of yesterday and today smells foul of the writing rabble, like a cripple who has become deaf and blind and dumb. Thus have I lived for many years, lest I live with the power, writing, and pleasure rabble. Laboriously and cautiously, my spirit climbs steps. So we've got some hinting at steps here. Alms of pleasure, where its refreshment, and life crept along for the blind as on a cane. What was it that happened to me? How did I redeem myself from nausea? Who rejuvenated my sight? How did I fly to the highest, where no more rabble sits by the well? Ooh, that's unique. How did I fly to the heights where no more rabble? Okay, hold up. This is interesting here. Okay, so the rabble come to the commonwealth. You're mixing with all levels of people. He said climbing the steps to new heights. So you're so high up at a new water station where you're amongst a different class of people, right? And to rejuvenate your sight, so not to see the pittiness, the filth, the despair. The eyes, when they linger on filth for so long and destruction, to look at something truly beautiful, that makes you feel refreshed. That's why it's like people who travel, they get out of their community and they see something ugly, something beautiful. It's like they go back home and the perspective shifts a little bit. Each place you visit leaving a sort of mark on you. That's why I want to travel to at least all 50. Well, not necessarily Hawaii and Alaska, not necessarily like Puerto Rico, but let's just say I want to travel to at least 50 states, in the US, so that I can really get to know my country and see what different types of people there are. You begin to see how travel can rejuvenate you. Was it my nausea itself which created wings for me? Ooh, that's a good question too. It's like that feeling, it's like the urge, the drive, the nausea, like it gives you the want, the need to look at something else. It seeks a medicine. And water divining powers. Verily, I had to fly to the highest spheres, that I might find the fount of pleasure again. Flying to the highest spheres. I'll take this. This can be applied to many things in life. But if you were living, like when I live in Philadelphia, it's terribly ugly, terribly depressing. But then you get to a place of beauty, like some of the forests in California, or you see the waves of the coast, right on the coastline, and you hear the roar of the ocean. That salt water mist just gets on your hair, rejuvenates you. It's a really refreshing feeling. Because that's why I like to make those nature videos. You step out of the drum and beats of the city. The sour milk smell, trash and rats and homeless people and corporate snakes in their suits walking around. And you get back to the different type of reality in a way. A whole different world that has a different smell. Everything about it, from the wet leaves to the tree bark and the sounds of birds, not sirens. You can really elevate yourself. Oh, I found it, my brothers, here, in the highest spheres, the fount of pleasure wells up for me. And here is a life of which the rabble does not drink. You flow for me almost too violently, fountain of pleasure. And often you empty the cup again by wanting to fill it. Now that's unique. So the current is pushing. And so much pleasure, like, oh, you scoop it up. But then the current, the ripples, empties it and it fills it immediately. So it's like the pace. And I must still learn to approach you more modestly. So, how do you manage that ebb and flow? When do you know when to dip it in? All too violently my heart still flows towards you, my heart upon which my summer burns. Short hot, melancholy, over blissful, how my summer heart craves your coolness. This blissful relaxation, but not too much dopamine stimulation. Gone is the hesitant gloom of my spring. Gone the malice of my snowflakes in June. Summer have I become entirely, and summer noon. Ooh, summer noons are nice. Hot. It's right on top of your head. But if you're in a place where you can recline in the shade, have a nice lemonade and a nice tuna sandwich, it's nice. If you have to work and construct in that heat, not fun. A summer in the highest spheres with cold wells and blissful silence. So here, it's hot, but the water's nice and chilled. Silence, no screaming, no one, hey yo, none of that. Just, that stillness. Oh, come, my friends, that the silence may become still more blissful. When it talks about silence becoming blissful, I often think about Antarctica, where I watched that one video, the deafening silence. Think about that. It's different when you're at home. It's a different kind of silence where you hear the ringing in your ears. It's just different. But when there's the stillness of nature, it stimulates your ears and thoughts differently. Like when you go for a hike, different noises you may have overlooked, you know, and then the noise of the city is so much noise that you just don't even hear it in a way. You have to block it out just to survive. Whereas in the forest, the void You know, you identify sounds. You know, it's fascinating. Someone's footsteps, whereas in like crunching in the snow versus some chick's heels in the city, it's a bunch of women in heels, click clack, click clack, click clack. You don't really, it's nothing special. So that silence can become very blissful in the right places. For this is our height, our home. We live here too high and steep for all the unclean in their thirst. Now this, to me, reminds me of that pyramid. There on the top, nothing but the sky above you. You're high above the masses. Your view is one of depth and distance, right? The rabble, as he describes it, they're not gonna make that climb. And so those who made that climb, there's a different energy there. I was thinking about how in Japan you have those luxury trains, how everything's so clean and nice, how in America the subway is a place of violence, drug addicts, people peeing, and it's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Even the trains you pay for a high price, they're not impressive, and they're really just dilapidated. So Japan has just a better class of people, right? People who respect stuff more often than Americans. And in some of the hotels they visit, this guy, solo travel, they had like toothbrushes and like things for free. In America, that would be raided by one person. They would steal it all, and then they would have to stop the service. You can't do stuff like that in America, because we're like a pack of like hoarding hyenas. You know, hoarding is a serious problem in America. Fat people hoarding wealth, hoarding junk. They are idle slobs. And so I understand how some people, they want to have their communities, and they want to raise the rent prices. They want to find ways to rise up out of the muck. You know, some people say the slums of India, the slums of Oakland, different slums where more diseases spread. People just don't care. You know, they want everything fed to them. You know, they want to be like in a daycare. It's quite different than people who worked hard towards something. When you've purified yourself through the flames of torment, you've bled for your goal, and you've reached it. You earned it. You weren't given it. It's just a different vibe amongst those kinds of people. Truly. So this one, it kind of has there's so many symbolic meanings to it when you look at it. I like that. The height of our home. We often say get off your high horse, people are out of touch with the common man. But some people, they see something tall, and the height makes them dizzy, and they rather just stay in their plain, their valley. Understandable. Everybody wants to go to the peak and look at the distance, what's there. The visionaries do. And let the visionaries mingle at the top. But let them not think they're untouchable. Because there's always going to be that one hiker who's going to trailblaze and take your position. There's only so much space at the top. Cast your pure eyes into the well of my pleasure, friends. How should that make it muddy? It shall laugh back at you in its own purity. On the tree, future, we build our nest, and in our solitude eagles shall bring us nourishment from their beaks. Verily no nourishment which the unclean might share. They would think they were devouring fire, and they would burn their mouths. Verily we keep no homes here for the unclean. Our pleasure would be an ice cave to their bodies and their spirits. This is interesting. I like that. In certain communities, if you look at it, you have to be able to get along there. like the communities that are quiet. If you got some loudmouth people screaming, hollering, fighting on their lawn, letting their dog off the leash, they turn the music on blast all day, they're having parties. When the neighborhood wants to be quiet and mellow and have the joy of peace and silence, that type of person don't belong in that community, you know? Someone who enjoys silence shouldn't move to a very noisy, dirty neighborhood. When he says ice cave to their bodies and spirits, their physical body and their mental aptitude isn't going to like the environment they're in. So it's okay not to have like I think the people who are wealthy, they don't have to have Section 8 houses in their communities. Rent control is important, right? But some people don't deserve beauty because they don't want to help maintain the beauty. People who throw their garbage in the street, poop in the street, rob, do all kinds of decadence. No, you don't belong in that community. You're not owed a place in the community if you won't bear the weight it's required to maintain the community. In America, we've gone really backwards because of the liberals. They allow so much crime, open prostitution, gangs. They let people snort and sniff drugs and all that on their sidewalks for people who are paying a lot of money to live in those buildings. They tolerate everything, and it's made them less safe. Alright? So I don't mind if wealthy people have territories they don't want the common person to go in. You're not owed access to people who earned their wealth. Either way, they maintain their wealth, they have their wealth, you leave them alone. You don't belong there. Stay out of their territory. And this is so much. There's so many ways to read this section. No homes here for the unclean. It's a fascinating one. Fascinating. Because you can read the unclean in many ways. You can read that in a lot of ways. But people now will have a safe community and bring in people with Section 8 housing who are using drugs, they got drama, illegal gun crimes. They're not ready to live around civilized, nice people, right? It's so true though that the more wealthy you go, yeah, they have different kinds of crimes, but they usually care a lot, and the rabble, as he would put it, oh, don't be a Karen, don't be this. That's how you keep your community nice. People want nice communities. But then they get mad when the people in the community are like, hey, don't do this or don't do that. And they're like, oh, well, you're just freedom. No, you don't belong here then. It's like, read the room. If you're someone who, like, if you're a royal from England, let's say, you're going to go live in the hood, you're going to suffer some violence. You got manners or whatever, and you're around a bunch of stone cold killers who will kill you for your shoes. You're in the wrong place. You can't change them. You need to go to the right place. And we want to live over like them, like strong winds. Neighbors of the eagles, neighbors of the snow, neighbors of the sun. Thus live strong winds, and like a wind, I yet want to blow among them one day. And with my spirit, take the breath of their spirit. Thus my future wills it. Verily, a strong wind is Zarathustra, for all who are low. And this counsel he gives to all his enemies, and all who spit and spew. Beware of spitting against the wind. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Yeah, because it'll blow back in your face. That's why we say don't throw sand, and it goes right back in your face. I like this section. It has a lot of metaphors in there, a lot of things to think about. It sounds almost like an aristocracy, a class system. Those who work for what they want instead of those who expect to be given. The entrepreneur versus the entitled communist, right? The entitled socialist who wants to tax and redistribute versus having people work for what they want. There's a lot of ways to look at that. What do you think? Let me know. Very wordy. I like it. If you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.